Okay, let me go back through this one again because I want to make sure that you guys could see the video. The question says to simplify. And the problem is okay, that's better. U to the 6th v to the 7th over u v to the 4th. When variables are next to each other, it means to multiply. So these are multiplied together. The fraction bar right here, it represents divide. So you have a couple of rules going on. You have the product rule. The product rule says that if you have bases of the same, so if you have a u times a u, because product means to multiply, but then they have powers, let's say a 2 and a 5, to simplify that, or to use the product rule, you would get your base of u, and then you would take the two powers and you would add those two powers together. So your final answer would be u to the 7th. Okay. The quotient rule, quotient means to divide. So that rule says that if you have bases of the same and they're being divided, and let's see, I'll put the powers, let's say 5 and 2 again, then if I'm dividing and the bases are the same, I get the same base, I get the u, and then I take the top power minus the bottom power. So that would give me u to the 3rd. Okay, so looking at this problem that was in a homework set, I've got two things happening. I've got the product rule, but now my bases are not the same. I have a u times a v, so I can't simplify that because the rule says that the bases have to be the same. And then down here I have a u times a v, but so the only rule I can use on this is the quotient rule. Okay. Before I use the quotient rule right here, I want to write it out because I want you to see that if you get to a point where you're not sure what to do, you can write it out and try to figure it. So I'm going to take the numerator, u to the 6th times v to the 7th, I'm going to write them out. So this means u times u times u times u times u times u, that's 6 u's, times v times v times v times v times v times v times v, that's 7 v's, over or divided by u times v times v times v times v. Okay, so just like any time that you're working in math, if you have the same numerator over the same denominator, we know that will be equal to 1 because this means divide. So technically this means 5 divided by 5, and 5 divided by 5 is 1. Okay, so I see that I've got some variables of the same. I can call them bases or variables. So this u over this u is going to divide and make a 1. This v can divide with this v and make a 1. This v makes a 1. This v makes a 1. This v makes a 1. So now you have 1 times 1 times 1 times 1, which is 1. And then times u times u times u times u times u, so that is u to the 5th, that's the rule of exponents. And then v times v times v, that is v to the 3rd. All the denominators divided out, and so here is your final answer, u to the 5th times v to the 3rd. Okay, so if you have to write it out, you can. Or you can take your original problem, which was u to the 6th v to the 7th over u v to the 4th, and you can break it apart. So I'm going to take these two right here because their bases are the same, and I'll say, okay, that's u to the 6 minus 1. Remember, there's an understood 1 right there if there's not a power. And then I have a v, because the bases are the same, so I take the top exponent minus the bottom exponent, 7 minus 4. And so that gives me u to the 5th, v to the 3rd, which is the same answer that I got earlier, but in a different way. So I wanted to write it out so that you could see it, and then I wanted to use the rule so that you could see how to use the rule.